and I have Noelle Micek with me. Noelle, we met here actually at the Design Center, which is such a beautiful thing, you know, that Chris has this vision of designers coming together. And one of the things that really drew me to Chris was this concept of really this collaboration model that I'm so passionate about, and that I feel every industry could lean towards a little bit more.
No doubt, yeah.
And so I really appreciated just instantly connecting with you, and we had lunch after I first met you, and we started this conversation about, gosh, wouldn't it be great to be able to communicate some of the things that we bump into over and over again with clients.
Right, lessons learned.
Yeah, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I just really enjoyed meeting you at the Design Center, and again, it was Chris's vision to bring designers together, and that truly happened, and I'm just so thankful for that. I'm Noelle Micek. My business is Noelle Micek Interiors. We've been in business for 11 years, and I have a background in finance. So I started off my career at Goldman Sachs. I was a trader and then ran our West Coast Capital Introduction business. And I feel like that background has really helped me in running my interior design business, although it might not be obvious to everyone, but really learning how to treat clients and how to run a business with integrity. And also in a creative business, a lot of people think it's really, you know, all about the creative. And it's really 80% business, 20% creative. Yeah, there needs to be a lot of structure. So that I feel like that background really helped me with my business. We do anything from renovations to new builds to furnishing. So we are a full-service interior design firm. We're a team of 3, and we relocated to Carmel by the Sea last year.
Talk to me a little bit. So we came up with some concepts around. You know, wouldn't it be nice if people knew these things maybe before they started their process?
Right.
Maybe speak to some of those concepts.
I know, you and I were kind of talking about our battles. I think one thing is that a lot of people don't know what an interior designer does. And I think there's a lot of designers out there that are doing different things, and so the message might get a little bit confusing. Right. And I think for us, our principal definition of what we do for a client is to help them bring their vision or the feeling that they want in their home to reality. We are here to help them make that a reality. And there's obviously several steps that are along the way that get you there.
I feel like it's our job to sort of translate people, because they can't articulate it, they don't know it till they see it. You have to be really sensitive and really, you have to really understand a person to be able to get their vision, and then so much of this process is the documentation process, which is where I really do see your structure and sort of business model is really, I mean, that is really the key to a successful project, is getting the documentation correct, getting everybody to sign off on it, everybody's on the same page.
So true.
All the details are worked out beforehand. I don't think people necessarily understand how much documentation, I mean, that is the bulk of the work.
Right. Yeah.
It's not, the vision is relatively quick.
Right. It can be. Yeah, it certainly can be. I mean, a lot of clients, like I said, know the feeling of what they want, but they have a hard time articulating it because it's not what they live and breathe each day like we do. Yeah. And so it really is taking that time up front to talk to the client about not only look at their inspiration pictures, but really understand how they're functioning in their house right now, what's working for them, what's not. I worked with a business coach, her name's Shannon Lee, and one of my favorite questions that she asks that I've started asking my clients is, it's 3 years from now, we're sitting down having coffee and you're really happy. What's happened to make you really happy? Yeah.
I love that.
And so inevitably people start saying, well, I'm standing in my kitchen and it's no longer dark and it's no longer yellow, or there's a skylight, or there's more, whatever it might be. They start really getting excited about, yeah, I really want to be happy in my space, and this is what will help me achieve that.
And what a wonderful way to, instead of saying, I want my place to look like that, what a wonderful way to reference them and to start them from, I find often in the process of design or manifesting a design with a client, there can be a lot of anxiety.
There certainly is.
That comes up, like a significant amount. And I sometimes I call myself a design therapist.
Yeah.
You've got sometimes some couples that are having different visions and dreams, and that sort of presenting itself to them as they're building their dreams together.
Absolutely.
And so I think I think the process of manifestation to start from that orientation of really what is it that we're after here, and if we can keep that center in the core of our process. Like if we're not happy creating something, we're not going to be happy when we get there.
No,
And
exactly.
I feel like that's a part of the conversation that people don't even approach. It's very, what do you need? What's the function? And let's crank it out and build it, and let's be miserable along the way and fight with each other and blame each other. And I don't know.
Yeah.
So I love
that's the path we're trying to avoid, right? And so really communicating with our clients up front on what they're looking for, what is going to make them happy, what are the obstacles right now that are keeping them from that feeling. Because it is stressful. It's they're about to make a significant investment. They're making decisions that are going to be permanent in their home. And like you said, there are dynamics about who's the decision maker in the process, and how can we get everybody on the same page. There's several people that are working on the project. There could be the architect, the contractor, the designer, the homeowners. So it can be stressful, and I think it's our job to really help at the outset to break open those lines of communication.
Okay, so we have a lot to discuss, but I just want to get a glimpse into, because this is always a curiosity for me, is how do you get that from your clients?
Yeah.
Like, what's the process that needs to happen for you to because obviously everybody's different. Some people will have their vision boards done. Some people will just say, go and do it, and then you do it, and they're like, no.
Right. Yeah, I never do the go and do it, because inevitably how I live is not necessarily how you will live or how they will live.
So do you have a questionnaire that you ask them?
We do. We have a questionnaire, and but it's also asking those probing questions of not just what do you need your kitchen to look like and function as, but it's also the feeling. What feeling are you trying to get?
And you keep coming back to this.
And it's true. I mean, because you can look at different inspiration pictures, and that might look really pretty on paper, but it has nothing that you really need for yourself in your own
Or maybe it doesn't fit in the context of the community or the landscape.
Or the architecture of the existing
architecture.
home. Yeah,
right.
So, right. So it really is, we do have a questionnaire because we just want to hit on certainly what functions we need, and that's first and foremost what functions we need in the home, but then also,
I really love that.
Yeah. So yeah, and then obviously when working with a designer, I think there's, if we're working on a space plan with a client, we want to make sure for us that we're putting, it's not just where's the furniture going to go in the room. It is, okay, where is the couch relative to the TV, and is it too close? Are they going to be looking like, up like this when they're watching the TV? Where are there floor vents for heating? We can't have a rug cover those, so how are we thinking about that? Where's the lighting? Is there enough task, ambient, overhead lighting for the function they want in the room? How is the flow in and out of the room? And does it make sense, the paths to come in and out? So we're thinking about all that when we're space planning.
Right, and so that comes to this really critical conversation of don't pull your interior designer in after the architect has gotten the approved plans.
Yes.
That's my biggest pet peeve as somebody that is referenced to as an interior designer. And for me, it's all a really important conversation that needs to happen well before. And I think you were talking about when to bring in the interior designer, and also how to incorporate that with your building team.
For sure.
I think this piece is a make or break piece for for avoiding conflict and for having a unified vision team and being efficient with time and money.
Yeah, I think that's a common mistake when clients embark on a renovation project or a new build. A lot of times they'll hire the architect first, and then they'll probably bring in the contractor, and then when it comes to start to, the point where they need to start to pick finishes, then they hire the designer. For us, working together initially as a team with the architect, the contractor, and the client, we get a holistic vision. So I worked on a house that we were building in Manhattan Beach, and the client had already hired the architect and already had the contractor. The drywall was up, the windows were in, they hired us. And we came in and they said, so we really love traditional, and we have this vision of, this traditional feeling in the house. And I walked around and realized that the architect had built a very modern home. There was no space around the windows for casings. They wanted crown molding. That was not in the plan. They wanted decorative molding on top of their built-ins. So we had to backtrack, go back, talk to the architect, talk to the contractor, talk to the client. The architect wasn't happy because it wasn't their initial vision of what they built.
Tell a modern architect to put crown molding in?
Exactly. The contractor wasn't happy because they were going to have to go in and try to lower windows in order to get casing around the windows. Yeah. The client wasn't happy because they didn't know the questions. They didn't know the information that they needed to provide. Right. They didn't understand how to articulate that.
Right.
And they didn't know to look in the plans and see that there wasn't casing called out.
Right.
They just didn't know. And so, and then it was going to cost them a lot of money to make those changes that they really wanted. They weren't going to compromise on that. They were building their dream home. So I think it's just a lesson learned in, if you can start off by hiring that team, they will work as a team together to bring the client's vision to life. And I think the architect, the contractor, and the designer, they all have a central goal to make the client happy and give the client what they want. And the tension arises when they're not all hired at the same time and as a team. And then the architect can get bristled because, well, this was my initial vision. The contractor's bristled because it's taking more time, and that's not what they. Right. So yeah, I think that's a super important point, is to kind of get your whole team on board together.
So I have a hard time separating building, architecture, interior design. For me, mentally, I can't separate it. And I can really appreciate that each of those professions really has specialties. Like, you don't want your interior designing doing your construction documents, and you don't necessarily want the people doing your construction documents to be really in the nitty gritty of how you touch and experience your home and move through the space and the kind of art and colors that you're experiencing. Those people are not necessarily the same people or the same expertise.
Yeah.
So I think it's really wonderful that you also do the construction, and one of the things that I have experienced is being thrown into projects, like I said, in the middle of a construction, and some decisions are needing to be made yesterday. The people that thought they were going to be able to make them are feeling overwhelmed and see all these shiny things here and there and don't know how it all goes together, right? And so then they bring me in, and then I'm saying, well, for what you want, this wall should be here, and this really isn't a good use of. And so I'm moving walls around. We're in the middle of construction. The architect's hating me. The builder's hating me. The client's getting change orders, but they want the vision that they want. Because what I see with interior designers is you're really going into the nitty gritty.
You are.
You're really getting into, how do I see my future? How do I want to feel in my future?
Yes.
And you're really translating that into what they experience day to day. And to me, the experience needs to start there. Design process needs to start there, and then have the conversation with the site and the structural concepts. And so yeah, just that piece. Like, if I could give one piece of advice before you start your project is to bring that person on, and also to value that person's. And you were saying too, to make sure that your designer, your builder, because I'll work with a more traditional builder, and I build a lot of modern, right? So I'm saying trimless, and they're going, you know, or
Right.
I'm saying wall-mounted vanity, and they're like, what's that?
Yeah, right. And so you want to make sure that your aesthetic matches up with the expertise
with
of
the
the people that you're
client,
building.
with the builders,
Right.
with all the specialty
Yeah.
people on the field. And the relationships are so important. Like, I feel like over the years, one of the most valuable things for me is creating these working dynamics with the contractors, and they know what I like.
Right.
We have a
Lasting
wonderful
relationships.
They inform me of a better way to design sometimes.
Absolutely. It is distinct what the architect does, what the contractor does, and what the designer does, but there's also so much overlap and synergy in that as well. And it doesn't have to compromise anybody's vision or
Right. It can
but
inspire.
it can really inspire. And I think also architects, they could create a beautiful home and not know what you're planning on putting in terms of furniture in that space. And so their electrical plan might not reflect exactly what's happening in that particular room. And so bringing in a designer early and saying, okay, we're gonna have a couch here with a floating console, and there are gonna be 2 lamps behind it, and so we need a floor plug right here. Great, so the architect will add that in. Or we're having a big hanging chandelier in the middle of this room. And so it's just those conversations that need to start ahead of time, so that you don't get to the point where drywall's up, electrical's gone in, and then you're pounding holes in all the walls and trying to shift the electrical. It's just more streamlined for everyone.
Right.
And then the builder the builder obviously also comes in and looks at the plans and looks at our vision and says, okay, this isn't going to work, or this is going to be cost prohibitive. Let's think about a creative way to get what you guys want, but in a more value engineered way. So
Right.
it's I can't stress it enough how important it is to bring your team together in the beginning.
Right. Well, I'm hoping that we can continue this conversation moving forward. I really want to get into some more in-depth conversations. Like, we had talked about kind of the psychology of design, and I can't open that can of worms with you right now. But my goal is to interview, maybe some building officials, and to circle back around with some of the architects and some other builders in the area, and talk about your experience with organization and sort of that psychological experience of design.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
it was
thanks
so
for coming.
fun
Thanks
to
so much
chat
for
with
your
you.
time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.